What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. We're here today with another maintenance video, not because I want to, but because I have to. So for those that don't usually follow the channel, this is your first time tuning in. This is a 2009 Chevy Silverado. Today we're going to be tackling my right rear wheel seal. Unfortunately, this last week and the next couple weeks I'm commuting about an hour and a half each way to work. A couple days into the commute this last week, got out, smelled the distinct smell of gear oil. So you can see, hopefully the camera will pick it up here, we got some slinging around in the fender well there. You can see it slinging around on the back side of the wheel. And if you get up here under the truck, oh yeah, there you can see it dripping from the backing plate there. The brakes, all telltale signs of a leaking wheel seal. Hopefully the bearings are good. Like I said, I just plan on getting this thing sealed up as quick as possible. Unfortunately, you guys know I don't like to use inferior or Chinese products on the truck. I always try to stick to quality components, but I had to pick up a Duramax from AutoZone because I have to get this done this weekend so I can get this truck back on the road this week. So I guess we'll see how that thing holds up. If I got to do this project again when I've got more time, then so be it. But I got to use what I could get a hold of today, and everything else is a few days out. So that's what we're dealing with today, guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get this tire ripped off. We're going to have to pull the axle out. I'll show you guys how to do that. We'll get the hub off, swap that seal out, and like I said, hopefully get it all sealed back up and get it back on the truck and down the road. Alright guys, now that we got the wheel and tire assembly out of the way, you can see we got 8 3/4 bolts here. These are what hold your axle in, so we're going to go ahead and pull those out. Then we can slide that axle right on out of here. Obviously we're going to have to disassemble the brakes. We got to get the rotor off of this hub there, and to do that, of course, we got to get the caliper out of the way too. Okay guys, once you get those bolts out of the way, go ahead and slide the axle out. Obviously have a drip pan or something ready. You are going to get some gear fluid out of there. And you literally just slide your axle right on out of there. Once you get out of there, you can see that locking ring and our nut and all that that holds this assembly on. But first we're going to go ahead and get the brake assembly out of the way. Okay guys, so here we are. I saved you the pain of pulling that brake assembly apart. You can see I just got the caliper, pulled the 2 bolts, hold it on there. Got it resting up there on the leaf spring out of the way. Little corrosion, had to tap the rotor off, but we got it off, and you can see it just, the e-brake there is full of oil. Everything's saturated, so that seal's definitely toast. Once we get in here, you guys can see we got a little lock ring right in here. These little picks, we'll pull that right out of the way. Okay, now we got that out of the way. You can see we got a little keyway in here. That's going to come out, and then we got this nut that we got to pull off. And for that, you need this tool. You need this socket, specially designed for that. There are creative ways, you know, guys, tapping that thing out of there. The problem is you risk damaging or mangling that nut, getting it out of there, and then there's a torque sequence and a torque process for putting it back together. So for all those that like to just beat that out of there with a punch or needle nose or different creative ways to get that out of there, I'd be real curious to see exactly how you get that torque down and get the bearing seated properly without using the right socket for the job. So let's get that keyway out of there, and then we'll get this thing off. Hopefully you guys can see this. Just grab that with some needle nose and pull that little keyway right on out of there. Now we can spin that nut out freely. Now these really aren't tight, you guys. There's a torque process obviously to go through to get them off, but you actually back it off a little bit. Once you do that, you line up that keyway, put it back together, so there's no way it's backing off. These things aren't really wrenched down tight, so this isn't exactly something you're gonna have to reef off. Alright, so now we got everything out of the way, we can wrestle this hub off of there. Alright, just like that. Alright guys, so a little wiggling and finessing. And it's on a taper, so it's tight. Get it off. There you can see there's the seal we're replacing right there. So now we'll work that thing out. We'll clean this thing up a little bit. Obviously, I'm hoping not to replace the bearing and race, but we're going to inspect it all for sure. Then hopefully go back together with it. Alright guys, so here we are. We're just getting that seal pull on out of there. Had to pry on it a little bit, working my way around it. We got our bearings, bearing race. So we'll clean that up and inspect it. Kind of see it's marred up in here a little bit where that sits, so that tells me somebody's been in here before, probably beaten that bearing race in there and damaged this. So I'm gonna have to see if I can smooth that up and seal that up. That could very well be exactly why this was leaking. Big old nick right there. Alright guys, here we are. I got everything cleaned up as best I can. Like I said, my best guess is somebody's been in here before, replaced the bearings in the race, didn't have the proper tool, didn't know what the hell they were doing. If you guys know me, I hate to do this. I hate half-assing things and whatnot, but I gotta get this thing back on the road. So it's gonna have to go back together like it is. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use a little bit of the high temp RTV that I've got that I use to seal up the axles. I'll show you that when we get to it, to help go in here, because the problem is part of this seal actually seals down here where it's all galled up. I don't know if you guys can tell, I've taken a little emery. I've taken off the harsh lip as best as I comfortably can do. Ideally, I'd replace the hub. This may be coming back apart at some point. I'm actually surprised this was not leaking much sooner than it was. So we'll go ahead and RTV that up. We'll get this new seal back in. We'll throw it together and we'll see how long she holds, I guess. I hate doing it, but it's what we gotta do today. Alright guys, so what I'm gonna do here, obviously before we get that seal in, I'm gonna get some gear oil all over the bearings here. Don't want to put those in dry. Then we'll get the seal on. If you're looking for any recommendation, this stuff is awesome. I've used this stuff to seal up exhaust headers. I mean, this stuff is fantastic if you're looking for a good gasket maker or RTV. Alright guys, so bearings lubed up, in place, got a little bit of RTV all around right where that seal seals. Do whatever you need to do. I got a custom homemade seal driver, absolute perfect fit. My father, who's a machinist, made that for me, so you guys do what you got to do, but this is what I'm going to use. Get that thing down there square. You can see that lip literally seats right outside the back of the hub here, kind of at the base of the tone ring there. So we'll get that driven on, we'll lube up the seal a little bit, and then we'll get this thing installed. So there we go. You just want to go right till that bottom's out on there. Like I said, it's got a little lip on the back of that seal. Looks like we're good and square. Let's go ahead and lube it up, reinstall this thing. Alright guys, so once we get this threaded on there, we'll go through the torque sequence of getting that bearing seated. Then we'll get our snap ring and everything, our little keyway installed there. Give it a shot here. Not real sure with the shadows and the sunlight here how well this is going to capture it, but just tightening this with hand. Here you guys can see it. See it sucking the hub up in there into place, and seating that seal up there where it needs to be. What you also want to do, especially through the torque procedure, is spin this thing as well. Ideally, get another person, help spin this as you're torquing it. Alright guys, so I've already got this spun out, I've torqued it down, got the thing seated, I backed the nut off. What we're going to do is we're going to torque it down to 50 foot-pounds. You'll see a lot of guys will back this thing off. A lot of guys will back it off full half turn and then line up that keyway. I don't like to do that. You can see it spins just fine. I don't know, maybe I should look up exactly what factory specification is. What I'll do is I'll back it off until that keyway lines up, and then we'll leave it there. Okay, so there you can see it all lined up. Get the keyway in place, and we'll wrestle the snap ring back in there. I'm going to need both hands to do that. Maybe. Make sure it's seated in there good, because that's what will keep that from backing out. Alright. Just like that. Let me get the axle back in. Alright guys, so here's the axle. I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up with my air tool, use some brake clean, get it real cleaned up, dried off. And then we're going to use some of that high temp RTV that I showed you to seal this up. I prefer this method any day over buying those $5 little factory gaskets that you get. The problem is those things get brittle. As these things heat and cool, those things get baked on, they get brittle, and inevitably they start leaking. Last place I worked our entire fleet, we did it this way. I've never had one leak, never had an issue. Like I said, you can quickly clean up the old stuff. You can tell I've already sealed this once before, because those other ones, like I said, were dry and brittle and they were leaking. So we'll clean this up real quick, get that RTV'd, and we'll get it installed. Alright guys, you can see we got that axle flange all nice and cleaned up, looking pretty. Let's get our RTV smeared all around there. We'll get her bolted in. Just like that, guys. Get all those bolts back in there. We'll get her torqued down. Alright guys, we'll get those torqued down and we can start reassembling the brakes. There we go guys, all buttoned up. Get the tire on, we'll top off the diff fluid, take her for a spin. Alright guys, so quick update, here we are. Just got back from a nice long test drive, got her good and warm, slinging oil around. So far everything seems dry, I don't see any issues. Everything's nice and clean, it's the way I left it. So hopefully that fixed the problem. Like I said, unfortunately that was probably the hokiest video I've done yet. I guess it is what it is. Can't always do things a textbook way. It's a real life situation. Says sometimes you got to work with what you got, get the truck back on the road so I can get to work Monday. Anyway, if that cheapo Duramax seal fails and whatnot and things don't hold, I'll definitely just replace the hub and the whole 9 yards, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I will keep you guys posted if that's the case, and obviously it'll just be more content for the channel. But for now, things seem to be holding, and we're back on the road. Thanks again for watching, guys. Till next time.